This is episode 46 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 46 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Jose Jafferji on the show, and he has got his hands in just about everything. He started back in 2007 at the age of 23, investing in single family properties. He had a couple of hiccups along the way, but now he's flipping homes, $800,000 homes in Toronto. He's accumulated a portfolio of 44 doors, and he is working with his wife side by side on new ventures like multifamily investing and development investing. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's got some incredible ambition. I know you're going to get a ton from this interview. He talks about his off-market buying tactics. These are implementable strategies that anyone can use if they're willing to put in the work, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this. Just a bit of quick housekeeping. The next Greater Hamilton REI meetup is happening on January 16th. And that is going to be hosted at the Nickelbrook Brewery. For detailed information on the event, please make sure that you click the link in the show notes of this episode and join our private Facebook group. You'll need to be on the guest lists in order to attend. It just helps us keep track of our numbers. So if you could please go ahead and do that now. I absolutely love to meet fellow real estate investors and build my network, help share stories, share contractors, and share best practices so that we can all grow together and get better at this game. I also wanted to make a quick comment that this is the last episode of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast for the decade, for the year. So the next one will be out in the new year. I wanted to wish everyone who's listening a happy new year. Thank you very much to all the different guests that have been on this show this year, and to you, the listeners and watchers, for making this such an awesome year. There's been so much positive feedback around this podcast, and I understand that it is helping quite a few people. So I wanted to thank you for all your support throughout all this, and wish you a happy new year. And I will see you in the new year, hopefully at the January 16th real estate meetup. So without further ado, here is episode 46 with Jose Jafferji. Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Jose Jafferji on the show, and I think I did say that right.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. I know we had a chance to meet at Irwin's Wealth Hacker event, and you seem like an interesting guy. You seem like you got a story to tell, so I'd love to hear it. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me over on the show. And it was, I started with humble beginnings. I started getting into real estate. I bought my first property in 2007. But before that, I graduated from McMaster University with an engineering degree. Very, very hard degree to start, and started my corporate life right after that. Since then, I bought quite a number of properties, and here we are today.
Yeah, so 2007 was the start.
2007 was my first property, yes.
Okay, and what did you buy?
I bought my intention was to fix and flip this property. It was in Brampton, close to where I used to live. So things didn't go quite as planned. I ended up losing about $7,000 on that first deal. But I had zero knowledge on what I was doing. All I knew was, what I saw on Flip This House kind of shows. Yeah. So zero knowledge, and I thought it was just as easy as what these guys on TV made it out to be, and it didn't end up working out the way I wanted. The market started to cool off at that time in 2007, but it was the best $7,000 learning experience today.
You've got longer in the game than a lot of the people I have on the show. Starting back in 2007. That's a while. You don't look like you're old enough to have started in 2007.
Yeah, you know what? It was just right after school. I wasn't too happy with my corporate job, and so I started exploring into what else can I do besides, there's got to be something else out there rather than just me working in the corporate world. So I started exploring other, money-making business opportunities. So I joined some multi-level marketing groups, and I learned a lot from them, mostly in terms of my mindset training. So started reading a lot of books and started listening to a lot of CDs, and that's a habit I still have today, which has been a paramount to my success and, self-improvement, listening to audio every day.
What kind of stuff are you listening to? Are you like an Audible library or podcast?
Yeah, so I switched to Audible about a year ago, but I used to have CDs in my car. I pretty much have an Amazon order monthly, if not more. Yeah.
So an Amazon or an Audible, an extra Audible book.
Exactly.
You mind naming off a few of your favorites?
Yeah. So the most recent one I listened to was called. It's very. Nobody, I'm sure, has heard of it. It's called Peebles Principles. It's a real estate deal making book. Very kind of similar feel to Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. He goes into specifically how he started and how, just his first deal made him a millionaire. This was a guy, came from nothing. So it was very, very interesting, and it's something that pumped me up. Start looking for bigger deals, because this guy started with one big deal that changed his whole life, and now he's worth probably about $500 million.
Oh, wow. For context, your story, because I know we actually did speak for like an hour on the phone not that long ago. You had mentioned to me you're kind of like shifting gears. You've been doing a lot of the single family or investment properties, and you're kind of thinking about development more now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you just give our audience some context as to what you've got in your portfolio right now?
Yeah, so we start off, single family homes was our bread and butter until about 5 years ago. We, the cash flow numbers started getting smaller, so we started implementing the suite conversion strategy, which was, combined, like all of our properties that we've acquired over the years has always been a value add strategy. So we always buy something that we could add value by doing some work to it. So single families, and now over the last 5 years, it's been primarily suite conversions. And so we have 26 properties, around 44 doors so far that we've acquired. So next, as you mentioned, we've been looking for multifamily and also really digging deep into some development opportunities.
Okay, so multifamily and then development. Have you lined up any multifamily yet?
No, multifamily has been a tough game to get into. It's just, the challenge has been that there isn't much inventory, as a lot of listeners are facing the same issue. And also you got to have, trying to make the connections to get these types of deals. There's been very, very few transactions that actually go on MLS, especially the bigger ones. So far we haven't acquired anything. And so we started getting earlier this year. That's what we were thinking, to get into multifamily, but now it's been more so towards development as well as multifamily if we can find something.
Okay, so you're looking for the developments, obviously multifamily. Why don't we just step back a little bit before we dig into that?
Sure.
When you got started, how did you fund that first deal that you lost $7,000 on? Where was that money coming from? How did you structure that?
The first deal was actually, my dad helped me out. So we used his line of credit to, at that time, it was my first job, so I was employed, and I could use my credit to qualify, but the down payment specifically came from my dad. And just to add to that, I didn't have any power team or any realtors that I knew, so I basically ended up using my dad's recommended realtor, which was primarily used to dealing with homeowners.
Yeah, not investors.
Yes, exactly. And so made a ton of mistakes in the acquisition of that property. It was a power of sale. However, power of sales are usually not always great deals and not in the best neighborhood. So ended up overspending on the renovation was probably the biggest mistake I made.
Okay, did you have a contractor do the work for you?
Yeah. We had a contractor, which was also recommended by my realtor at the time, and but my brother and I used to did a lot of sweat labor into it. Did the landscaping and some painting. Learned some hard lessons from that experience, but definitely I'm glad I started early.
Well, that's incredible. How old were you? 2007. You just graduated.
Yes, I'm trying to date myself.
Like 21 or 22?
No, I was I believe 23.
You're 23 when you got started. I was 24 when I got started, so similar age range. But you've got some good time in the market. Obviously,
Absolutely,
you've
yeah.
learned a lot.
Absolutely.
I would assume.
The last 10 years has been probably the perfect storm in terms of getting into the market. Especially, I would say about 70% of my portfolio is in Hamilton, which has done substantially better than some of the other areas. But, I'm glad I got into it when I did.
So bulk of that portfolio in Hamilton, what were the year ranges that you bought in?
So and let me take you back even further. I started buying in 07. It was my first property, but then I took a little bit of a break to 09. I started buying in Windsor, Ontario. Back then, they had a lot of great deals available. Yeah. So in Hamilton, I bought my first property in 2012. Roughly
2012?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you buy several more over those coming years?
Yes.
Yeah, great time to get into Hamilton right then.
Yeah, and at the time, the single family were around the low 200s. We bought some multifamily, like smaller triplexes. 2 triplexes in the downtown area. We went through a lot of hard tenants in the downtown area, so we started looking up on the mountain, and that has been a primarily our strategy, buying on the mountain over the last few years.
Yeah, I think the demographic is going to shift off the mountain. And for those who aren't familiar with Hamilton, on the mountain, off the mountain is just there's an escarpment there, and if you're up on the escarpment, then you're on the mountain. Not really a mountain, but the demographic in Hamilton has been changing because the prices have been changing. The Toronto crowd is being pushed to Hamilton, so Hamilton just keeps getting better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there was a lot of improvement area there, so a lot of investors such as yourself are really reaping the benefit from just hanging on. Has flipping ever been a major part of your strategy?
Yes, especially recently. Just about we had twins about a year and a half ago. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So twins actually just changed our entire life. My wife and I we never expected this to. We have identical twins now, which we're blessed with. However, it comes with a lot of challenges, and so there was a lot of time pressure on myself. So I started transitioning from, and my active income was through my real estate sales. I'm licensed realtor. And then I started looking into, I'm already applying the BRRRR strategy, which that's how I've grown my portfolio, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat.
That's been your main strategy the whole way?
That's been my main strategy, even with single family homes when I first started. I started saying to myself, hey, we're doing the same thing. Why don't we open up our area instead of just looking at these investor towns? So right now we do a lot of fix and flip in all of the GTA, wherever we can find deals. We've had a lot of success in closer to Toronto, downtown Toronto area, and
but your price point must be $1 million, $800,000.
Yeah, we actually in Toronto there are certain pockets that you can stick to under. We always stick to under $1 million. So our resale value would be around $800,000-$900,000, and those ones they sell very quickly.
So you're not into the luxury. Finishing. You're selling the finished product.
Yes.
For under $1 million in Toronto. So you're buying what, 500-600?
Yeah, exactly.
On a detached or a semi-detached?
Detached semis, yeah.
Or a townhome. There's a lot of those townhomes that are not condos in Toronto. So is that kind of your bread and butter, buying on those side streets? And
yeah, exactly. So we're doing a lot of work in the close to the junction, not exactly in the junction area, but close to it. So that's kind of having a ripple effect from the junction. So still fairly affordable under. We just recently sold one, which was in the mid 8s.
And give me a description of the type of house.
This was a 2-story detached. However, only 2 bedrooms.
Detached?
Detached, yeah. It was. You could probably call it a semi, because it was literally it was only about 1,400 square feet or so.
Yeah, that's a good. The junction, yeah, I had to look it up because I'm not that familiar with all the neighborhoods of Toronto, but that's an area for a lot of improvement too. Kind of has that it had the Hamilton vibe a little bit.
So I look for areas that are kind of, has the ripple effect on the areas that have already improved.
Yeah.
Because Junction, like if you went there about 7 to 10 years ago, it wasn't very appealing. Now it's very, kind of has that nice vibe to it, hipster vibe.
Yeah.
And is the average price is probably around 1.1, 1.2, depending on the
For a
property.
semi,
Yeah.
or a detached even.
Yeah.
They're small though. Yeah,
Smaller. They're
like
smaller
zero lot
footprints.
line stuff.
Exactly,
Houses just built right up against each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the areas that are upcoming or surrounding that, on the and then also on the east end I do the same thing. So we just recently finished a project near Danforth and Woodbine, which worked out really well too.
So walk me through that again. So if it was Junction, that was the area that was really hurting the most and really needing improvement.
This was 10 years ago, like 7 to 10 years ago.
So
Yeah.
at that time, that was a pretty rough area. Not a desirable area compared to the rest of Toronto. Now, granted, all of Toronto is desirable compared to other cities from an investor standpoint. So you would look not in the center of the Junction, but on the fringe, or would you be looking in the neighboring neighborhoods? Because isn't High Park North, which is immediately south of that, isn't that neighborhood worth more because it's closer to High
absolutely.
Park?
I wouldn't touch anything. That's why I study basically the MLS neighborhoods and see the average price points, and anything that's around the average price point under 8 or 900,000. That's kind of the area that I would prefer to work with. Mm-hmm. So we look for properties in those specific pockets.
So if I wanted to find a house in Toronto right now under 800,000, what neighborhoods would you say that you're looking at that I would want to look at?
Yeah. So for example, we've done quite a few deals near like Weston and St. Clair, which is called the Rockcliffe area. And what I found with Toronto market, especially when it comes to fix and flip, people are less price sensitive in comparison to like for example, Hamilton or Mississauga. For a great product, once you're done with it, people are willing to pay a little bit of premium. They're not as price sensitive. Like they will pay, 25, 50,000 more, and not pay very close attention to comparables, because that's the thing.
So it's more emotional in Toronto, you're saying?
Yeah, and also they're a really high quality product is hard to find. So they know that, and they're willing to pay a little premium for it.
So your renovations, when you're done, is it like done to the nines? You guys put quartz and stainless
absolutely, yes.
Engineered hardwood and accent features and really expensive light fixtures,
yes,
all that stuff,
yes.
pot lights throughout.
Absolutely.
Are you rewiring and gutting these units?
Yes, a lot of these homes have
like
not been tubed.
Gut.
Yeah.
So new plumbing, new electrical.
Yeah. A lot of times we redo for sure. Yeah, we have to redo the wiring. Some of the plumbing we have to redo, and we often add. We finish the basement just to give it an extra square footage to the house.
And how big are these basements? Like 400 or 500 square feet sometimes?
Yeah, they could be around under, I would say under 700 square feet. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just picturing. I picture. Having driven around these neighborhoods, some of the houses that are just sandwiched up against each other and they just look so small. I'm like, how do people fit in there?
Yeah. No, and a lot of times you have, parking issues. Like we bought quite a few properties that have zero parking. So renovation is definitely tough. However, if you can make the numbers work, that's where I'll go.
This caught me a little by surprise that you had a big flipping business, which I'm interested in. So let's take a recent example on your buy. So give me a recent, if you had something in Rockcliffe or...
Yeah, absolutely. So we just finished a project. We bought that for $460, and and we sold it for $810.
Oh wow, that's a good spread. What was your reno cost?
Yeah, we spent around $140,000,
including reno and carry.
No, just renovation costs.
So $140 on reno, and that's to reno like 1,200
that was one
square
of
feet,
my biggest deal of the year, like in terms of profit margin.
Well, that's a pretty
refurbished.
ridiculous price point to buy at inside of Toronto.
Yeah, this was the private sale off market
Oh,
deal.
so you found a lead.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, so you said 800 or
810 as
810.
well, yeah.
Okay, so 810 was the sale. What were your carrying costs?
So I'm because I do this on a volume basis. I have my private lenders that I've got to pay, so I'm paying fees and I'm paying high interest on these loans as well. And you've got double land transfer tax in Toronto.
Yeah, if you factor in all of that, like your lawyers,
approximately,
lenders.
yeah, like an additional like 40,000.
I was gonna say 50, but yeah, 40. Yeah. Okay, so 40,000 on top of there. So what I like to just set these up as an income statement. So that covers everything. Now, realtor fee. Did you pay one?
Yes, I represented myself on the listing side, but I have to pay the other side, so broker.
Okay, so
on the buyers.
Realtor fee. So what, a 2.5% roughly? Okay, so 2.5% of that. So there are some benefits to being a realtor. If you're an investor, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
There are disadvantages too, but I've contemplated it. I've contemplated it pretty much the entire time I've been an investor. But just
yeah, you know what? Sometimes it does kind of box you into a certain way of thinking, or you may think that you know that specific area, but it may not be as well as somebody that's very, very local to it, right? And that's why I prefer to do business in areas that I know.
Yeah, like what level of confidence? Because to me, I'll tell you, it kind of makes me feel a little uneasy to get into big numbers. And depending on who I'm selling to, I might be uneasy selling at an $800,000 price point. Now in Toronto, when you say 800,000, I'm thinking my preconception would have been that would be what you were buying inventory at, not what you were selling it at. So I think you could, like if it were me, I'd probably feel fairly comfortable knowing there was about $150,000 on the table in this deal. So I calculated 147,750.
Yeah, exactly. Your numbers are quite accurate. We netted about 140 on that one.
So you netted about 140. So yeah. So when you say we, is it?
Oh yeah. Like my wife and I, we're both in the business together.
Because you work together on, and how long have you been married and working together?
Yeah, so it was our 10-year anniversary this year, which was quite special. And she's been with me in this journey from the very beginning.
Back in 2007?
Even prior to us getting married, we used to travel, go down and see properties like when I first started in Windsor, Ontario. We also had bought some properties in US, so we used to drive down to US together.
Where in US?
In Rochester, New York. So she knows the business inside out as much as I do, and she primarily handles all of our property management and acquisition side in terms of financing and all that.
Okay, so Jose, if you don't mind me asking, what is your strategy for finding new inventory, finding deals to flip?
So we do a lot of marketing, and that includes online marketing. We have a strong online presence.
Like Facebook or?
So we do some Facebook ads, mostly for retargeting specific if a visitor's already been on our website. Google AdWords, doing Bing ads as well. So we cover as much as we can on the and spend a lot of time and effort on SEO on our website. So
what though? Like, what are people searching for when they find you?
There tend to be motivated sellers that need to really unload the property, and primarily there has to be minimum at least 2, if not 3 motivators. We find that first is, okay, property needs a lot of work, and they can't afford to do a home. The seller can't afford to take on any more renovations. Second reason could be financial. Yeah, they don't have the financial means to do the renovations. They may already have a second mortgage on the property, which they're it's hard for them to keep up with. And if there's a third one, it's a guaranteed like super sweet deal.
Like guaranteed that they want to sell.
They want to sell, and so it could be the third motivator could be either they've missed a payment. If they've missed a payment and they've got some kind of a default letter, those are the highest motivated sellers. It doesn't happen that often, but it could be like, a third reason could be health related, right? They really need the money because they need to downsize and they need surgery or something like that. So
that type of person, how are you reaching them?
Most of the time they're reaching us.
Okay, so they're searching. What would somebody like that search for?
The most frequently used term is sell my house fast.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And oftentimes they know that they don't want to go through the traditional method of going through a realtor, waiting 3-4 months for the process. They don't have the time. Especially if they're really need to, if they've already gotten a letter from a creditor,
Yeah, the time is of the essence, and I think that I've seen it in leads that I've generated. People just have to sell. Like they just got to get it gone. So, and if time is of the essence, I know my friend negotiated a deal. I've mentioned it a few times on here. Like they had to have and be out in 30 days. Yeah. No realtor can do that. If they're listing your house, they can't do that.
And we're very upfront about the whole process with them. My wife tells them over the phone that why not list it with a realtor?
Yeah, give them the option.
Giving them the option. And sometimes that might be in their best interest. So we tell them, if we can't help them, or they have unrealistic price expectations, we say we probably recommend that you use a realtor because you do have time to sell your property.
If they have time and they're not like embarrassed to to show their house.
I see a lot of the cases there is some embarrassment, so they tend to not go through and show it on put it on the open market because they for some people it's a private thing. They don't want to go through and have 50 people walk through their property, especially there's some emotional connection to the property and they may feel that there's an invasion of their privacy, so they're willing to give up a little bit of money for that, right? And for the convenience that we provide.
Yeah, and how would you position that to them in order to be able to secure the deal? So you go in and they've obviously contacted you. So these people they've actively searched. For the most part, would you say that's a big part of your leads? So they've actively searched, you get a call and they're like, hey, I'd like to sell my house. You talk over the phone with them about their rough expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you decide to go see it if it makes sense.
That's right. We have basically some qualifying questions, as far as the condition of the house, what type of date were they looking to move, what kind of time frame they have, and then we ask them what's their price, what kind of ballpark are they looking to get for it. If it's in a range that makes sense for us, then we will go. The next step is to go out and see the property.
So how often do you find when they respond back? How often do you find that they're giving you a price that is just silly?
Well, it's 90% of the time it's a no deal. So.
But do you ever push them on it and just say, "Whoa, that's quite a bit too high"?
Yeah, we do sometimes. Sometimes the price is just unrealistic. Or if they're describing a property that we recently upgraded the kitchen.
Yeah, then
Then we know, right?
Yeah.
Or if they try to sell us on the property, then we know, okay, this is probably not the right fit for us. Correct. So it's a bunch of dead leads that we have to go through in order for us to get a decent one. So it's kind of all of a numbers game.
Have you tried doing other tactics to generate leads that aren't online tactics?
Yeah, we do postcards as well. However, postcards, it's sort of hit and miss. We target a lot of neighborhoods and we would get basically no deals. Okay. So we pick and choose and so it's all a test and measure game that we never know. Sometimes it could be the time of the month or the time of the year may work better than other times. Sometimes there's specific pockets that you need to target, which there's no 100% certain to whatever we do, but it's all about trial and error.
Right. Have you noticed a certain time of year is better?
Around September, October was a decent time. But if you try to do it like in middle of December, it's probably not gonna be successful.
You think it's just because they're getting? I would think it's almost a motivator. Like some people coming up to Christmas don't have any money for presents, and they just want to get out.
It could be, but by the time you close, they don't. It's too late.
It's too late. Yeah, so they're not thinking about it. It's not the greatest time once you're into December. Yeah.
Well, winter. Well, sometimes the winter, they either want to sell before winter, because certainly people don't want to move out, in the core winter season, right? So they don't want to see 10 centimeters of snow outside and move.
Right.
So it's usually they set it up. So for example, we have which was very surprising this year. It's happened. We have 3 deals that are closing in 2020, and one of them is as far as July.
Really?
Yeah. So it's whatever the seller wants, we give them, but in return, we have to be able to be comfortable with the price we get.
You've got to get your price. That's your motivation, and it seems like you're trying to find somebody who's motivated by something that is not price. They might say, like I've in my experience, I've noticed that pretty much everybody just says a price that's high. I think it's a lot of it's posturing, but it's which ones, like you said, did they just finish a bunch of renovations, or did they just finish telling you about how it needs a lot of work, and then they also priced high? I think there's room to talk back and say, hey, you know what, you just mentioned it needs all this work. Well, I would have to do that, and I don't want to lose money.
That's right.
So
we tell them that, hey, there's got to be some money left on the table for us. We as a business got to put food on the table as well. Yeah. And you know what? Most people appreciate your honesty, and we give them so much flexibility that they're okay with letting go of the price a little bit. We certainly are not trying to retire on one property,
But if you're gonna take the risk and be exposed the way you are and the price point that you are, you have to be compensated for that.
Exactly.
So what level of target profitability are you aiming for on something you're buying for $500?
Usually we do our numbers based on around 10% of the resale value at the end.
Okay, so you want to make on an 800, you want to make at least 80.
Doesn't always work out. Sometimes it's a lot less, but we try to aim for that. But then, you may have some cost overruns. But sometimes the market could be in your favor, and there's the market's gone up, so you may benefit when you're selling. 6 months after.
Yeah. Oh, I've experienced a ton of that in my travels. Just if the market's on its way up, it's very forgiving if you make a mistake or have cost overruns. If it's not, then you have to eat those or hang tight until the market kind of goes up a bit more, and then you can sell it. So it's interesting the approach you're taking. How much are you investing into paid advertising on a given month?
Probably around. Sometimes we test and measure, but if it's something that's worked, then we'll push out another one. But on average, around 3,000.
Okay, and that's just on the online stuff? That's like Facebook, Bing, Google,
no,
whatever else?
That's altogether. Just on ad spent is around 2,000, and the additional is like on the websites, and we have somebody that manages our ads. So we pay them.
Oh, okay. You pay somebody to run them. And,
yeah.
Okay. Is that outsourced, or they work directly for you?
Outsourced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And mainly targeting in the neighborhoods that you're looking for. So
yeah, exactly.
Can you do that with Bing and Google? You can geographically target just for specific area. Okay, so only getting people in that neighborhood. And then I guess the big question I have, which probably is why the spend is up, is cost per click on that type of keyword is probably pretty competitive.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, expect to pay around $400 per click for that.
Per click?
Yes.
$400 per click?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, at least Google's getting rich.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of wasted money, and that's why you have to really know what you're doing and start small. Like, we didn't start off that way. You started off with just $500 a month, and
So that gets you a click and a half.
yeah, and you, well, if certain ones are too expensive, then you cancel those.
You just don't bid it on those words. Yeah,
exactly. But the online world is changing so fast. You got to keep up with it. Google's coming out with like something called their own version of their lead ads, so you can actually fill out a mini form on the ad. Something similar that Facebook has already done.
Like basically saying what kind of ads you want.
No. This is like, let's say you're asking for their email address, and name an email address, for example. Instead of you clicking and going to another website, on the form itself, on the ad itself, you can fill out your information.
Oh, okay. So they'd just be able to enter info right there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Are you utilizing, so you mentioned you are doing Facebook. Is that just kind of a background strategy, or have you had success with that too?
Facebook, we don't do cold traffic. We just do retargeting.
Okay. So you have a pixel.
Yeah,
we're getting technical here. You'll have to educate me, but basically there's a way of tracking them off of the Google ad, and then it follows them around on.
Exactly.
And you initiate that through Facebook.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That's handy.
For cold ads, I mean, we found that it was a sort of, we ran it for over a year and we didn't get any good results. So we said, let's just focus on retargeting.
Because that's cheap, right? If you're just trying to get if you have like 10 or 20 people who have clicked your Google ad and you're just following them everywhere, it's not very expensive to follow one person.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets expensive to follow many people.
Yep.
And that's brilliant. So primarily online for you.
And online we find probably the best quality leads, the most motivated, because they're contacting you. They have a problem that needs to be solved, so they're contacting you. And those leads are always going to be much better. But again, it's a numbers game. A lot of times it doesn't work out because the price that they're looking for, or there isn't a big enough motivation yet.
Yeah, that's the tricky one. I've had a lot of that. I sent out some flyers and I had people call me back and they'd be like, "How much are you going to give me?" I'm like, hi, I'm Andrew. And I'm not sure. I'd have to see your house. First off, could you give me your address? Oh, well, you left me a letter. I'm like, yeah, that was a postcard through Canada Post. And so anyways, it's funny.
We're faced with the same problems. So it's not there's no easier way to do it.
You just have to power numbers.
You have to power numbers, and
how many would you talk to though? It's like, so in a given month, you talk to 100 people or 50 people and maybe find a deal out of that?
Yeah, I would say probably around, on average, we get about 2 per day or so, 2 calls or so per day. And we usually get about a deal a month.
Deal a month?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're flipping about a property a month now?
Yeah.
Are you still trying to actively grow your hold portfolio?
Yes, and that's something that has been a little bit on the back burner. However, we have, again, like I was saying, we wanted to look for multifamily. We're still looking, but we're kind of now going to diversify our search into a bigger area, perhaps other cities, and also maybe have a more of a strategic approach, because right now we've just been waiting for something to show up on MLS, which... I thought to myself, I can't expect a deal from MLS, especially on multifamily. Like everything gets scooped up internally, so I got to figure out a way to get contacts for those.
Yeah, it's Mark Baltazar was on the show, and he does a lot of multifamilies in Hamilton, and he's finding them with basically hard work. Locate buildings that look like they may be older and not a lot of work done. And then find the owners and mail them, try and find their contact info, like kind of, hard work, really.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
But the good thing about a multifamily is that even if you just do one deal a year, you're good, right?
It's true, but I mean, it's so much. It's not like driving around a neighborhood. There is a lot of work. It's not like driving around a neighborhood.
Absolutely.
It's like you have to go find them and then figure out which ones even look worth mailing, and then it's not like a lot of these numbers are listed. I mean, you can find their property management company potentially. Maybe you can find a number on the building and call them. Yeah, possible.
No, and that's our game plan, is to have more boots on the ground so that we can do this, because it's mailing them a letter and that kind of stuff. It's, I would say, for this kind of a multifamily is probably not very effective. You have to somehow build connections to the property managers and somehow get it in front of the owners.
Yeah, and their motivations are going to be different.
Yes, absolutely. They're not going to be motivated, but you got to, I guess, set up a relationship so that anytime in the future, if they are looking to sell, and a lot of these owners are like, they've owned this for 30, 40 years, right?
So some of them, if you can catch the ones that are maybe just getting a bit older, maybe they're ready to retire, they don't really need the money from the building anymore. Yeah. They just sell it and, they'll be done with it. So maybe those are your ideal, right? You just make it easy for them. They're already way up. They're going to make a bunch of money off you anyway. Yeah. Maybe they don't mind if it goes for a little less than they could get going on the market.
Yeah, or sometimes they if they're a bigger investor, they may want to buy a bigger building, so they need to free up the cash quicker. Mm-hmm. And if you're at the right place at the right time, you may be the first person they call, right?
So I guess they got to be there, though. They got to know you.
Yeah.
They got to know you. That's the critical part. Okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you, because it was one of the first thoughts on my mind, was how were you funding your deals? Like, I know your dad helped you in the first one, and you've done BRRRRs, but how were you funding your deals as you got going? Did you take joint venture partners, or were you creatively borrowing, or were you just making so much money on the ones that you sold that
we have some joint venture partners as well. We also have some private investors, which we basically, they're not equity partners.
They're debt
partners. Yeah. And but we had a system basically that every 2 months we would refinance a property and pull out the equity and buy another one. So that's how we
even early snowballed. On though, like your first 3-4 properties.
Early on, we the property, we were buying for like 250,000, so it wasn't huge deal. But we always bought something that we could spend a little bit and maybe create $50,000 to $75,000 in equity within a year. So when the year rolled by, we were able to refinance.
Oh, okay.
And at the time,
mortgages were easy back then.
Easier, exactly. Right now, with the number of properties we have, it is more difficult for us to refinance.
Time to go to commercial lending.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of in a way unfortunate, but at the same time, where we can't dwell on the past. Wish we had jumped into commercial earlier, but no regrets.
When you were telling me your story, I kind of felt like maybe you shifted over to flipping because the buy and hold got so difficult, and you're like, well, I still want to make money here.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was strictly like we were already doing this, fixing up properties. Instead of renting, we were gonna resell it. So I started we've done quite a few flips in Hamilton, and then I started looking into opening up the marketplace. Why not do this anywhere? Because we don't have to keep the property. That we're not looking at the rental income anymore, right? So yeah.
It makes sense I get why people flip. It does make sense to do it here and there. I have done it. I actually started a company with a partner, and we made it to flip properties. But I don't love it. Part of me feels dirty when I sell a property. But it would depend though, right? If I didn't see great rental potential in it, then I would be keen on selling it. I think, but I mean, you just keep looking at what real estate values do. Yeah. And it's always like, you're going to look back in 2 years and you're going to be like, wow, I would have made more if I had waited 2 years to sell it, or just never sold it.
100%. No, and that's why my wife keeps telling me this year that we haven't substantially grown our portfolio this year. I kind of feel bad that we haven't been able to secure anything commercial, right? Although commercial is a longer time frame, you're not necessarily going to find something to buy or a good deal to buy within a couple of months, but yeah. It's one of those things that we're anxious to find something. So if your listeners has a deal, a multifamily deal, then we're really looking forward to moving ahead.
He wants you to contact him. So your contact info will be in the episode at the end. We'll share it. So, and I'll put it in the show notes. So yeah, it's a great way of getting your name out there. And if there's, I hope you can get a deal out of it. That'd be great. I hope I get a deal out of it too. So I'm always looking for off-market stuff too. And single families, few units. Those are kind of the things that are cool for me right now. The big ones kind of intimidate me a little bit because of the transition time. If I want to burr, and that's where I'm at. I want to burr stuff.
100%.
I don't want to leave money into deals. I want to find a way to creatively push the value up.
Yes, 100. Yeah, and yeah, with the bigger deals, don't expect to live off of those.
You got to bleed for a long
Yes.
time,
You're gonna
unless
be
you
doing
find
a
a
lot
sweet
of
deal.
capital improvements over the even the first 3-4 years, hopefully sooner. But it's more so an equity building move.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're in the long run, you're set. If you got a few like 8 plexes, 12 plexes, 20 plexes in your portfolio, in the long run, you are so laughing.
Yes.
These are on 25-year amortizations. They pay off. Say it's worth $2-3 million now. Give that 25 years. Now it's mortgage free, and
Exactly.
and it's
and
worth
I
double,
realized
probably.
that the multiplier effect on the multifamily is crazy. Like you basically a quick way to calculate it is, let's say if you have let's say with all your units you increase the rent by $1,000, okay, per month. So you multiply that by 12, and if you multiply that by 14, that's the value that you've created.
Okay, and that's based on what cap rate?
On 5%.
On a 5% cap
Yeah.
rate. So that's a cool little shortcut. So so take your monthly rent times 12 times 14.
Yes.
And now you got the value. That's what I love about multifamily. If you increase the rents, that's all you really have to do. Increase your rents.
Exactly.
And then you're truly laughing.
Yeah, because and the more units you have, your expenses go down. So on a bigger multifamily, you may be around 25% expenses. On a smaller deal, you might be around 30-35, right? So you get the scale effect, and that's why they're so powerful.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and that's why I know that's part of my long-term portfolio strategy. What I'm more looking at doing right now is just assembling a bunch of duplexes per se into little packages, and then refinancing them commercially and building out a. And when I say commercially, for those that aren't familiar with that, that just means that it's with commercial lending at the bank. It's not on the residential side of their lending department. It's handled differently. It's looked at differently. They look at more at the properties than they do at you as a borrower. And so that's my plan, is to go more that way and start building packages of at least 5 doors or more to meet their qualification requirement, and then just keep growing it that way. And I've spoken with a guy already. He says I can just add property in after property. So each time I add a property, I can just add it basically to the policy. It's almost like an insurance policy, but it's a mortgage policy, and it has individual mortgages inside of it.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
This is a great time to just transition into development. So if you wouldn't mind, talk to me a little bit about what you've been looking for.
Yeah. So development has been a huge steep learning curve, because we had zero background in it, and it works completely differently than it has some similar effects to what when you add a secondary suite, go through the city permits and go through renovations and all that. However, it's much more complicated. Much bigger costs. So I started learning a lot more over the last 6 months into development, and the biggest challenge is finding the right piece of land or right opportunity, which is financially feasible and also doable as our first project. We've done some feasibility. We're kind of close on one specific deal in Hamilton, which is potentially a 24-unit townhouse development. So we're doing our studies on that, and fingers crossed it may work out.
Have you tied it up conditionally?
Yes.
Okay. How much have you invested into planning right now?
Planning not much. Well, 5.
Okay. How much did they have available for you? Did they already have like a draft site plan approval?
No, nothing.
Nothing. So did you come up with the concept, or did they?
No. The planner came up with the concept.
But you initiated it?
I initiated it. So we got several different concepts. We went with townhouses, back-to-backs, towns, 3-story versus 2. There's also a potential for a 6-unit up to a 6-story building on there.
Okay. And as far as zoning goes, it's not appropriate now. You'd have to rezone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so you're more looking with the planner at what the city's official plan is and how your proposal would fit with it.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar with it, basically development starts with the city's official plan. Well, the province's official plan, then the city's official plan, which is based off of that. And then you've got zoning, which is based off of what the city's official plan was. So if you find a piece of land that's not zoned appropriately, but it looks like it would make sense, and work with an urban planner, and it looks like it would make sense for maybe townhouses or maybe an apartment building. And the ways to know this are apartment buildings typically go in existing high density areas. So if you see an area that's got a bunch of apartment buildings and then some residential houses, if you were to propose adding an apartment building right near other apartment buildings, that would probably be looked at favorably. So you have to start with a gut feel, maybe work with somebody who's done it. Jose, you're obviously leveraging the expertise of a professional.
100%. Yeah, you're going to be working with a lot of different consultants, and your planner is one of the top consultants to work with.
Because the urban planner is the person that's been there, done that. Like they're the person that has taken these type of applications from concept. So Jose comes into a meeting and says, I'd like to find a development. I found a big parcel of land. What could I do with this? And then the planner goes, they look at the city's official plan and say, hey, you know what? There's some precedent to be able to do this. And it's really just a thought at that point. You have to invest. It's kind of like a Hail Mary, although it's an educated one.
100%.
But if it pays out, you're in the position to benefit. If you go and buy a parcel of land that they've already done all that work, then the person who did all that work is going to take the monster's share of the profit. And then you're going to buy and pay too much. That's what I've seen on the market. Like people who find stuff that's like site plan approved and they want to buy it. I've run the numbers on them and just concluded there's no money in this. The developer wants to take the money, and hey, as they should. But it doesn't mean I have to be a sucker and buy it. But so you want to go in there, develop it yourself, and then that's a great way to potentially add a lot of units to your portfolio.
Yeah. So this particular piece of the parcel that we're looking at is, there's a lot of potential into either build to sell or build to lease, but we were primarily looking at it from a build to sell perspective because it's substantial, like it's 1.4 acres with a potential to add another acre to it if we can negotiate the price right. There's a lot of confusion towards the whole list as well because we don't know. There's two major numbers that effectively change the entire pro forma, right? Which is your sale price at the end and your construction cost, which is, changes the dial quite a bit.
The market takes so much time to catch up to the changes. Construction costs are way up. Yeah. And I don't believe that real estate values have gone up as fast. It's hard to believe. I think construction costs have gone up more than real estate costs in the last few years. But that makes sense, right? I mean, the housing market responds to what happens in new construction. So as new construction gets more expensive, so does resale. So you kind of, as a developer, almost have to have some faith when it comes to the numbers. That's not my advice. I'm not giving advice here for the record, for the record, everyone. But I've seen people, do it, right? They come in when the current market prices don't seem to make a ton of sense, but they have some basis for knowing it's going to get better. I wouldn't do that, but I do know that there are people that do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you don't know in 3 years when you're kind of ready for construction, projected what your price per square foot will be for construction.
Probably
right?
going up too.
I'm sure it's going to go up. You don't know by how much, but if it's substantially up, then your project may not be feasible at that time, and you're essentially out of luck.
But as we said, if your construction costs have gone up that much, then odds are so has the entire market for real estate. Yeah, likely, unless our economy just anything could happen, right? I mean, the worst could happen too. So,
and that's the most challenging part about development is that you can never get all your costs 100%. Like, so there's so many projections you got to work with that sometimes, it makes you feel uneasy, right? And because there's so much money at stake and there's a substantial risk. I kind of describe it as high stakes poker. You're betting a lot on the line.
But there is a way to hedge. There is a way to hedge yourself, like tying a property up conditionally. I don't know if your plan is to just buy it and work through it.
No. The good part about this one is that we're gonna have a long 2.5 year close.
2.5 year conditional period?
Not conditional.
How long are you conditional?
Right now it's 6 months, but we could potentially get that extended.
Will they allow you to close sooner if you want to?
If you want to, yes. But the price they want is a little bit on the high side, so they're giving us the flexibility in return.
Okay, and giving you a chance to see if you can turn it into something.
Yeah.
I think the real takeaway from all of that is, like you said, it is high stakes, and there's a burn that you're going to have on any development you try, and not everyone's going to be feasible. And you're paying the planner whether or not you're doing the deal, and you're paying the lawyers and the engineers and anyone else you're paying. That's the way real estate goes. Yeah. And so it's for that reason.
It might be a wise $25,000 investment up front, so you know if this is gonna work out or not. Because
it's a heck of a lot better to spend $25,000 getting educated and not doing a deal than it is to do a deal and pay way more by losing money. And headaches, the years of headaches trying to figure out what to do with that property when you bought the wrong one. So yeah, that's a smart way of looking at it. Okay, so Jose, if someone wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, maybe help you out finding a multifamily property, sure. Knowing that you are a realtor, how would you like them to get in touch? Yeah,
so they can visit my website. I haven't been too active on my blog, but they can check out my blog, which is at SavvyRealEstateInvestor.com, which is SAVVY realestateinvestor.com. My other website is SavvyRealEstate.ca, which is more going to be geared towards the development and multifamily side. Yeah.
Okay, so they could just reach out to you through one of those and then start the conversation from there.
Sure. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram or social media. It's Jose Jafferji.
We'll make sure that that's all up in the show notes. Jose, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners and viewers with before we wrap up?
Yeah, you know what? In this real estate investment game, you got to be very patient, but most importantly, you got to take action. For example, if I look at myself, just in the last 6 months, we've learned so much about development, and we'll continue to learn more about it. But it's about taking action. If we could have sat down and said, "Hey, take this very slowly," but you're never gonna get far if you just have that kind of mindset. You gotta push it really hard to launch a new project, right? Yeah. To launch a new concept. So it's about just giving it your best shot. Like, you got to go all into launching something, whether it's buying your first property or your 10th property. It's just going as hard as you can in order for you to get somewhere.
So we got to put all your cards on the table and all your chips on the table, so to speak. Kind
of referring to almost what comes to mind is the Grant Cardone 10x principle, right? If you're just gonna expect to do 1x, you're not gonna get to that level. So
on that note, because I find it very on topic, is, do you have a specific tip for personal organization? I can speak from my own experience. I got a lot going on. And I've tried a lot of systems to capture information and things that come into my life onto a list and then organize it. I by no means come anywhere near perfecting that. Just curious if you have something, a little trick up your sleeve that you can share with us.
Oh, I don't think it's that high tech, but I simply use a journal or a notebook and take as many notes as possible. So if I'm speaking with somebody, I'll always have a notepad with me.
So all day long, you're writing.
All day long, I'm writing stuff.
Where's your notepad?
And then towards the end, I may highlight certain things to follow up on. Right. But I'm just one of those guys that I can't memorize anything. I have to write down everything.
It's smart, because then later on you can go back and dissect what needs action, what doesn't. Brilliant. Okay, I'm glad you shared that, and I think that's a gold nugget for this episode, is capture what's coming into your head, because I was just reading about this morning.
And pen to paper, not typing on your phone. I find that it's not as effective. When you have the pen to paper, it's.
Yeah, you just everything in your mind, right? Because our brains are almost, we have a subconscious stress if we don't write things down, right? Well, if you didn't write it down, then you're relying on your brain to remember it. And that's a stressful and probably less effective way of being. Very cool. Glad you shared that. And just real quick, if people wanted to know what you do when you're not focused on real estate and giving it 10x, what are you doing?
I'm spending a lot of time with family right now, with my twins and my 3.5-year-old. So it's a busy household, and then these precious moments, they grow up so fast. I just, I try to be there for my kids as much as I can.
Well, I will leave it at that. Thanks so much, Jose, for making the trip down here. It was great conversation. I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure that our viewers and listeners will too. So thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for watching today's episode. If you have not already done so, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you click that like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Leave me a comment below. And while you're at it, why not share this episode with somebody that you think it can help? I would really appreciate it, and it's going to help this podcast grow and help build the community around it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you on the next episode.